Dude, I'm at a point in my life where I think we're going to see billion-dollar companies built with a dozen people in AI. I think in the hands of the right people, it is the ultimate weapon.
On this week's episode of the Silicon Valley podcast, we sit down with Raj Prasad, who has over 25 years of marketing experience, including roles as CEO and a fractional CMO. He has developed a deep understanding of brand development and revenue growth. His career has been focused on using a range of marketing tools to build and strengthen brands. On today's show, we talk about how is AI disrupting the marketing industry? What tools should entrepreneurs and marketers know to grow their business? How is AI disrupting the many different aspects of a business? What to look out for and educate yourself for the future in AI? This and much more in this week's episode of the Silicon Valley podcast. Now let's begin. Enjoy.
Raj, I'm super excited for this week's episode of the Silicon Valley podcast. Now, I've gotten to sit down with coffee with you, and you've told me some incredible stories. And before sharing those stories with our audience, can you give us a little bit of background of your career and what's led up to this point? And just give us your nice little 31-minute overview of everything.
All right. Thanks, man. Thank you for having me here. I'm happy to be here. So my background is in marketing. I started at the age of 16. I had an internship at an ad agency, and I've been lucky to be kind of a journeyman. I've been in upper management of marketing and advertising businesses for the last 18 years. I've built companies from nothing to $34 million in revenue in about a few years. I've gotten to work with companies that are at $1 million looking to get to the next 10 million. Lots of fun stuff, lots of cool ideas coming to life. And I've had a chance to work with lots of great people over the course of my career.
Okay, so right now, one of the biggest things it's in the news, it's the hottest thing talked about AI, but AI in marketing, particularly, I find very interesting, especially, doing mergers, acquisitions in that space. I keep hearing about the valuations of these companies fluctuating so much because of the introduction of AI. So could you talk a little bit about maybe some of the specific applications of AI in marketing that you find most impactful?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the most impactful, like real life uses today that I find the most impactful are copywriting. So getting it to give you the first drafts of any sort of video scripts, any sort of blogs, any sort of anywhere you would use text from a marketing perspective. Because one of the biggest parts of working with artificial intelligence is giving it a very specific task. Think of AI as a entry level college student who just started working for you. There's a huge amount of knowledge and base there, but you can't give it a one sentence prompt and tell it to give you something beautiful. But if you give it something specific, like, hey, help me generate a video script for this product in this way, it actually produces really wonderful first drafts that then you have to go in and update. But that is something that immediately it's super useful for. The other thing is data analysis. So if you have like data dumps that you may have in the CSV format, uploading that into certain products and letting it do a little bit of analysis is actually pretty cool to see some of the patterns it finds that even people like me would miss. Things that you wouldn't get in a normal analytics dashboard. It is able to find certain patterns. And I'll put a caveat on that. You can't take it at 100%. So when it finds a pattern, you do have to go back and check it. Because remember, it's entry level. So you can't take an entry level employee's work and put it in front of the CEO. So, and that's one of the things that if in every stage you do that, and then you have a lot of the image and video generation AI coming out. And considering where it was last year and where it is this year, that's having a huge impact in the way marketing is happening right now.
You're saying entry level. Is that entry level because the technology is so new? I mean, because you also mentioned from last year to this year, it's improved a great deal. When do you think it'll get to that level of maybe a senior marketer or junior or something a little bit further where it is presentable to the CEO or a potential client?
So that's a great question. So I no affiliation with any AI companies outside of Dane Health, and that's traumatic brain injury. So I'm just talking about general what I'm noticing as a person using the product. Um, so the biggest thing that I'm noticing is the more the product gets used, the better it gets. That's the nature of AI, right? Um, it will probably the consumer version. Will it ever be a senior marketing manager? I don't think so. I think not for a very long time. And the main reason for that is just you need good data sets to train the models on. And the good data sets actually exist in corporations. And most corporations, all the big ones, are now starting to invest in some form of artificial intelligence training, something that helps them get to the next level. So in time, I think we'll start seeing strategy probably in 3 to 5 years at the corporate level. Um, but once again, I don't think we get to a strategic level for a while. Now, I'm being a little optimistic because I love technology, so I'm saying 3 to 5 years. But with a lot of the guardrails that are having to be put in place with AI, especially for hallucinations and just overall just control of it, that may slow down because the current versions of artificial intelligence, while they're marketed that way, are truly not intelligence. I mean, it's predictive, right? So it's predicting what the next response should be. So a lot of times, what you need to be able to do with it is give it the right parameters to give you a great output. So that requires data sets, that requires training on that data that it requires. So I think we're a little bit out, maybe 5 to 10 years, maybe 15. I mean, I hope 20 because I guaranteed by the time you and I are done working, there are no marketers. Like our generation is probably the last most creative, most brilliant because we'll have AI as a tool. But by the time we use it at full capacity, it will have learned enough and technology will have caught up and expanded, right? I mean, if you don't believe me, look at what your cell phone looked like 20 years ago and look at what it does and looks like today. So think about that. Like, yeah, in 30 years, I don't see even a VP of marketing around. Probably
That's just
marketing.
scary to think. What advice would you give that college person 100,000 in debt with the marketing degree graduating this year?
Learn to use AI. Train. I mean, so here's the cool thing, right? In my future, the one that I see in my little crazy brain, it's going to be a world where we're going to battle with AI at the corporate level, at whatever level. So there's large language models out there right now, like GPT-2, like Neo GPT and GPT-J, I believe, that you can download on personal computers and start training it. And having that knowledge and understanding it is going to be more important. Like yesterday, I sat down with a former coworker who were working on a project together, and the requirement was the customer doesn't have a big budget, so we need to use AI to speed up all of our development process. And that's kind of how the person with $100,000 of debt graduating from college. I mean, do that now and make your money and invest well, and 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 good luck, buddy. Too harsh?
I mean, I like how the evil laugh just kept going there. So
Well, I mean, it's funny, but here's the thing. I mean, I think AI is going to create a world where that marketer is going to go do something different because what we're talking about is artificial intelligence is going to increase the pool of ideas. While it may eliminate tasks and mundane things and simple things that would take hours to do into seconds, it will make it possible for us to take where we would have created one idea for something, we're going to create 100. So the opportunities will glorify. And I think that's where, I think it's fun to tell that because I'm part of the alumni board at Cal State East Bay. Sometimes I run into students and fun to joke with them about that. But the reality is, it's a huge shift. I mean, it's kind of like when I was in college, right? The world we exist in today didn't exist back then. There were old timers back then. They're like, how are you going to move forward? Well, now everybody's a developer around me, right? They're not, no service jobs have lots of opportunities, right? Like, because no one went into service jobs for an entire generation. So, it's just going to be a shift, and I think ultimately that we.
Okay, let's go back a little bit about the impact of AI today. You'd mentioned about creating articles.
Mhm.
How do you go about doing content optimization right now? Search engine how are you using AI for that?
So, so you're going to hear me say this a lot whenever I talk about AI. What you put into it matters, right? So you can't go to AI and go write me a blog about marketing and use optimized keywords, because what it will do is it'll write you a blog about marketing and it'll optimize it for marketing related keywords, and it's doing its best. But the way I do it is I'll start off with a product like a pay per click product that gives me analysis on keywords like SEMrush, for example. I'll find the keywords I want to use, and then I will frame the article myself in terms of bullet points. So I will write usually the article's title, the meta description, and then I'll bullet point the content I want inside the article. And then underneath it, I'll provide the keyword that I want the optimization for. So now what happens is when I give it to the AI, it outputs back out a 700 word article. Still not ready for prime time, but I'm able to then go back, edit it, because remember, junior employee entry level, right? So I'm going back in and I'm editing it. And now my article that would have taken me an hour and a half, 2 hours to write essentially takes me 30 minutes, because once I'm done with my outline, I don't have to write it anymore. I have to just edit the response that I get back. So that's one of the ways I do it with content generation.
Okay, so with that, I mean, how much quicker is your workload? How much more productive are you using that? And then, well, I mean, does it come across at all kind of generic sounding, AI sounding, or does it, create the, hey, this is Raj personal touch, content there?
So that's where the human intervention is important. You have to add the human element back in. So what it's giving you back is a artificial intelligence response. And when you go through the editing, as you're editing it, you should put your voice back into it. So from a workload perspective, it's making me, in certain scenarios, I've become about 50% efficient. Like, so I'll give you another example. Working at Dane Health, we're launching a product. We had to pivot. It's so weird. I've never seen a startup pivot before, right? Like, never happened. And so
I
we
think we'll
pivoted.
do an episode just on that. What is a pivot?
Yeah,
Something
right.
you may never come across, but if you do, what it
Yeah,
means.
yeah, what it means, right? So in the middle of it, we had to get some new marketing assets up. And we had to use AI to build out a quote unquote brand, because we had an event to put on, I think, within 2 weeks. So we used AI to develop the bug for a new logo that we then took into Illustrator. We vectorized it, and then we added font treatment to it. And we had a new logo within, I would say, 2 to 3 hours, and it looked very nice. Like, it was a 3D rendered logo, and it was like an emoji smiling. Like, it really fit the brand. Um, but something like that in the past, it would have taken me 3 hours to contact the designer, get onto their schedule, create the creative brief, talk it over with them, and then get them on their way. So that speed efficiency in the hands of the right people, it speeds up quite a bit. Now, I play in the world of, hey, let's validate ideas, get it out there, let's see what happens, and then expand it. So in my world, we don't have to go in and look at it with as much scrutiny as somebody would, like, let's say, at a corporate level and Xfinity. But it is a great starting point for all sort of creative projects, because the human intervention comes in and kind of puts it all together. But those assets, those elements that take a long time to create, can be sped up quite a bit.
Now, is there any way to just either speed up or, I mean, how is AI being used or impacting the way marketers analyze and understand the customer behavior?
So one of the things that AI, like, so I'll use GPT-4 as an example. If I had to talk about one product all day long, I would talk about that, because I think it has lots of different uses for that novice user who's just trying to get into it. Um, GPT-4 does a good job of data analysis and visualization. So you are able to provide it either A, lots of data, or B, have it help you write custom code to help you analyze large data sets. So that's some of the things that I'm doing with GPT-4 a lot. Like I'm able to get a million records of demographic data across neighborhoods. So I work with GPT-4 to go, hey, this is what I want to extrapolate out of this data, or this is what I want to analyze. How do we write code that does that for me and outputs a analysis? So GPT-4 then, because even though it's an LLM, it still understands what sort of dependencies and products we need in an environment to run these statistical analysis, for example, right? So it will tell me you need this product, you need SciPy, you need pandas, you need specific things. This is how you organize the code, and then make sure you put your file in this folder and run the code. And so that way, any marketer can look at, if you have data sets that are millions of records, that is a faster way to get custom data back out, right? Because there's tools out there that will give you analysis based on what they've already created. But now we live in a world where I need something super duper custom, and I can't find something. Where can I go? You can go to GPT-4 and quickly help it compile code for you. It still needs to be tested. You need to understand computer science at a certain level because you'll have to go, once again, human intervention. But if you're a level 2 computer science expert, it will make you into like a level 6. So that's where I use a lot of GPT-4 for analysis, is large data sets that I need some custom analysis for.
Okay, so what's the difference between a level 2 and a level 6?
So in my world, a level 2 is somebody who understands like arrays, variables, understands how classes and objects work, kind of understands the basics of computer programming, is familiar with 1 or 2 languages. Like I'm on the marketing side of stuff, so my languages have always been JavaScript, CSS, HTML, and a little bit of Python. That was enough for me to work with GPT-4 to build out an entire web app that analyzes location analysis at the neighborhood level across the entire country. So it's depending on, level 2 is there. Level 5 is somebody who's probably able to put together a web app on their own, and is able to deploy it, because it wasn't an easy process, but it was one of those fun processes to kind of go through and really see the capabilities of it, because I do have a working product that I'm able to show people and actually sell. So it's super interesting.
Okay, we'll circle back to that later. But in the meantime, you mentioned GPT-4. What are some of the other tools that kind of caught your attention that maybe some startups, entrepreneurs, or that out there that are new to the space might want to do some of their own research, play around with?
Yeah. So I'm a huge fan of Jasper.ai. They're really great at helping you write content, creating any sort of text-based content that you would need. And I believe Jasper is built on GPT-4, but some of these products like Jasper are customized to help you build better articles that you would get out of GPT-4 naturally. I'm a huge fan of Runway. They're embedded inside of Canva in terms of their video creation system. So Canva has something called Magic Studio, and you're able to use AI to develop images, video clips. Runway is what provides the video clips. And Canva is a good tool just overall to have for any creative assets like social media, because you could create AI images, you could create the clips, and they can import it into your project and have a final product without ever leaving the domain. So those are some of the ones that I would use on a regular basis. But as time's going on, I'm kind of noticing AI is being kind of embedded into existing platforms. So I personally, I like Gemini. It just hasn't been as consistent for me as GPT-4 has been. Even though I'm full Google suite of products and so forth, and I love Google, but I would stick with, if somebody wanted to test some stuff out, I would definitely check out Runway, Chat GPT-4, not 3.5, and Canva of its products inside there.
Okay, you had mentioned that you created an app to target. I mean, how is AI shaping the future of targeted advertising and audience segmentation?
Um, so it's only going to enhance it, right? So there's data regulation over how we use marketing data that's kind of being implemented across the world. In California, just recently happened. Um, but some of the cool things that it will be able to do as time goes on, because we're still early, right? The more these LLMs learn, the better and more astute they're going to be. So when it comes to segmentation, you would be able to feed it more data that we can currently process. So any data that we could have about a user or a mobile device or a specific computer can be used to most likely create some predictive analysis. There's that sci-fi movie, I believe it was in the Minority Report, right? Like, hey, buy some Tylenol, you're about to get a headache. That is that is literally possible in time as far as segmentation goes, right? Because years ago, I was working with with an app that worked in the veterinary space, and at that time, we had talked about doing this without AI, but you could keep track of a user's location and keep track of the weather in that area. And if it gets hotter than 85 degrees, you can send a notification to a mobile device for that area and go, hey, make sure you don't take your dogs out for a walk, you'll burn their feet. So we're talking about things like that, but more detailed, um, more based off the buying patterns that you have within your credit cards that are anonymized data that's resold. But those patterns can be analyzed a little bit deeper to kind of understand, like, you're buying food, and I'm using very general examples, right? You're buying food every 3 weeks, so now it knows to target you with the coupons 2 weeks and 4 days. So segmentation will become way more one to one.
Okay. So other than segmentation, I mean, because I would think that would lead directly into, you know, ROI for marketing campaigns, performance, but how is AI contributing to it? Because I would also think maybe in the short run, margins would increase, but in the long run, people on their side are going to go, well, we know you're using AI. We know that there's less man hours. We know that we're not charging you or going to pay the fees that we once did. And that with the help of AI, yeah, this overseas team, their work is looking really close to the onshore team here. And how do you see AI impacting, I guess, the whole marketing industry, marketing campaigns, return on investment with using it? I know there's like 4 questions there, so pick the easiest one for you.
Being a business person who always has to look at return on investment, let's look at that one. Because everything else, I think, would be hypothetical. Because doom and gloom view would say that AI is going to replace everybody, and then everybody's not going to have a job, and people aren't going to. But I don't operate that way. I operate off the AI will create opportunities that we can't even think of, because we'll have something there that's learning at a pace that doesn't need to sleep, that doesn't need to eat, that is understanding data. That's scary in its own self. So there is that perspective that I like to focus on. For ROIs though, I'll give you an example. So this product that I built with AI, even though it's not AI, but AI did all the coding, I promise. I mean, it's thousands of lines of code and AI did it. It helps make advertising campaigns more efficient. So
I just like the way that you're giving all the credit to AI when I'm sure 99% of people out there be like, yeah, no, it's all my code. Yeah, I did all of it. And they're like, wait, million lines last night? Yeah, no, it's me.
I'm a team player, Sean. What can I say? I'm a team player. So with it, AI made advertising campaigns for anybody who uses this product more efficient. So the ROI goes up because instead of saying, hey, we're going to cut the advertising, what we're saying is don't cut the advertising dollars, increase the frequency. Right? Marketing is a game of reach and frequency. So if you have good reach, increase frequency, and you should get better ROI. That's the general principle of marketing. So that is probably where the biggest impact's going to be. Yes, there is going to be there'll be standards set in time. Like right now, like what you just said, right? There's a lot of people out there using GPT-4 to do their work, and they're going into work the next day acting tired, and here I am, right? Like I did it, I did it. But in time, that's going to change. It's kind of like, I mean, I'm guilty of that. I used to look smart back in 2002 because I was using Google more regularly than everybody else was, right? So, but there is that element where from a pure marketing strategy perspective, better targeting, better analysis will lead to better ROI. That's just natural, like understanding. The other thing that shifts, and this is one of the bigger shifts that I think will help solve that employee problem, right? Like, how does everybody stay employed? Is you'll be able to do iterations faster. For example, you could use AI, use human intervention, and instead of doing one campaign in 7 days, you could now do five. So while the resources going in for one project have been depleted by 80%, productivity can now increase by 80% to do more. So that's where I would see the biggest shifts. Like, for example, like I'll use the logo creation example, right? The way logos are created is you first create a bug or some sort of a creative element in black. You review it, it looks good, the style looks good, then you put some font treatment down. If that looks good, then you put some creative elements down, and very generalized process, but that's what it is. That first step can now go to AI. Steps 2 and 3 can't. That still needs human intervention because AI doesn't do fonts all that well. It's not reliable to make edits all that well, but it can do those first part pretty well.
With the additions of all the iterations and everything, when do you think people will just get bombarded with their social media and just kind of, I mean, I'm just thinking about AI and how it's going to impact social media marketing and the efforts there.
Oh, you're seeing it now. I mean, when you go onto TikTok, when you go onto Instagram, you're seeing more and more AI becoming present, right? Like, it was funny. I was talking to somebody the other day. I was like, we're about to walk into the world. Like, it's interesting, right? My generation was able to see the internet be introduced as a little niche product that very few people knew about. Then you got your streamers, then it went general market, but now we're running into the world thanks to AI where we're about to have junk mail internet. What happened to the mail in the early 2000s is about to happen to the internet because you're going to have more noise. You're going to have more content. You're going to have more creativity. You're hearing a lot of AI voiceover now on videos, right? Like that's a huge shift. So there's going to be a lot more videos, but that's where, algorithms that serve us our content are being also adjusted to account for AI based content and really prioritize relevant, high quality content. So as long as you produce high quality content, you should be fine. But if you're doing the run of the mill, and the example is I run an ad agency and I do marketing. So if I keep writing about the principles of marketing, I'm going to get lost and I'll never get served. But if I start talking about this is how you use marketing in your franchise location that sells sandwiches, now my content is very relevant and it's most likely to be used by the right people. And so that's how you would stand out in social media and things like that is high quality.
Do you think the small mom and pop will be able to use AI to have effective marketing, results?
Dude, I'm at a point in my life where I think we're going to see billion-dollar companies built with a dozen people in AI. I think in the hands of the right people, it is the ultimate weapon. And I think we're going to see that in the coming years where the right application, and once again, the technology is new enough and is growing at an exponential rate, right? But yes, I think small businesses, if they do have the right applications of it, right? I have a famous Rajism. It's like, what's the difference between a butter knife and a sword? How you use it, right? Like it's how you utilize it and how you work with it.
How
Oh,
many
I have Raj.
Ragisms are there?
I have multiple. My former teammates used to play Raj Bingo because I'd walk around, just walking around with his Rajisms. I didn't like it, but yeah, they played Raj Bingo secretly behind my back.
Can you share some other Ragisms with?
They come to me over time. I stopped sharing. If you don't mind over matter, if you don't mind it, it doesn't matter.
All right, let's just continue with the question set here.
Would you like more? I mean, they're really dad-like jokes. But
I mean, if it comes to you, just make it natural. Feel free to share. We don't want to force anything here. All right, now let's stop tapping the pencil.
Sorry. I got into the laughter. My apologies.
All right. So, how do you see AI influencing the role? Oh, we already kind of talked about that. I mean, I do like the idea of a small dozen-person team being a unicorn.
Look at it this way. If 12 people are expert users in prompt generation across different fields of subject where they're experts, right? So I'm an expert in my field. That's why I'm able to produce the results that I'm able to produce the marketing, right? But if you put those people together, your productivity will go up considerably. And we know that, and if you run a business, you realize it's a lot of hypothesis, trial, error analysis, hypothesis, try until you get it right. And when you do that in a business and you do it in the right way, you eventually figure out the right pathway to create sustainable revenue. And I think the right company in the right conditions, whether it's a nice venture-backed company that starts off with 12 really smart people and they're able to create a product that goes out to that let's say fixes a problem that every person might have. Well, over the course of time, if it's an AI-based product, I mean, what are your real costs to go forward, right? Because you're using AI as your team as you grow out. So it would require the right set of conditions, but I think it's possible. So it is one of those things that just, if you really think about it, it has to be the right conditions, but it is possible.
How should either a brand new marketer or a young company or mom and pop, how should they start thinking about integrating AI with their daily workflow, their daily, what they're doing right now?
Well, it's first start with somewhere where it's your barrier of entry is not going to be high, right? So pick something. Like I always use social media as an example. Like anything that's text based, you could create headlines, copy of any sort. I mean, you can even create images and put them together in Canva and create a social media image with it. But I think putting that and starting somewhere small and seeing how it works is super important, because I think even though LLMs are marketed as AI, they're more closer to intelligence augmentation than they are artificial intelligence, right? So it's, if the general expectation is this is AI, then it should give me a final product. And I think that's where, if a small business can change its, or somebody wanting to start off in AI can change their perspective and go, actually, it won't give me a final product, it'll get me 70% of the way there. And then you jump in there, then you're able to understand how to, and the joke always is, you got to learn how to talk to it, right? You got to learn to say the right things. And you can only learn that over the time of doing it. Kind of like, if you never used Excel before and someone goes, here's Excel in front of you, give me a function, you'll be like, what? Like, here, I'm going to calculate this with and people would sit there with a calculator, not knowing there's a function there. So it's understanding that. So that's where I would start off. Pick off something small. Email a drip campaign, right? Don't tell it to go write me an email campaign. Give it a very detailed prompt. Like, this is my audience. This is what I do. This is what I'm offering. This is my call to action. You're a copywriter that has won awards for the emails you've written. Please write me 3 drip emails that I can send one after another for 2 weeks to my customer base. And then see the results that come back out. And that's a great way to get started. But once again, that goes back to that junk mail thing, right? Now you're going to have more emails than ever before because it took 8 minutes to write 3 emails and another 15 to edit them.
Raj, do you have any stories that you can share about either your company, what you're building, what you're working on? Anything?
Yeah, I actually have 2 really cool projects going on right now. So one of them is I am the fractional CMO for a company called Dane Health. And we are building a artificial intelligence that identifies hidden brain ailments in the general population. So according to the NIH, brain injuries are a silent epidemic. Affects millions of people across the world, or 66 million across the world, millions across the US, and millions more because the tool doesn't exist to assess it. Well, it didn't exist. So our team has put together an artificial intelligence that takes a 5-minute assessment and goes, here's the probability that you might have something and you might want to go talk to your doctor. So that's a really cool product. We've done some of our first trials in corporate wellness events, got some really good sample data back, and things look very positive. And then the second product I'm working on is through my company, where we're building out this project that's been like the bane of my existence. The first time I created it, it did so well. The developers took me to court for a frivolous lawsuit. And then the second time I tried to create it, it just same thing happened, but on a smaller scale. So this time around, I'm like, well, AI can't take me anywhere. So let's see if we can.
You don't want to do third time the charm with the lawsuit? No?
Yeah, right. Like, well, yeah, exactly. Right. It's like, well, and it's a good product though, because it helps identify opportunity for small businesses and location level data. So, AI and I kind of sat together and we built out this product that looks at 1,200 demographic variables across millions of neighborhoods across the United States. And we're able to layer this data one on top of another and create heat maps of where these people exist, if specific to whatever business it is. So there are 2 really cool. The second product is eventually going to get its own AI version. The dream with that is to build a sales rep that you come in, you tell them your budget, you tell them who your customers are and where your store is, and it does all the analysis for you and kicks you out a campaign and answers any questions you have. So, sorry, salespeople.
So many.
Where's that laugh again, huh?
Good stuff. All right, Raj, if there's anyone wants to find out more information about you, what you're working on, any resources that you can share, mention them now, and what's the best way to get in contact with you?
Yeah, get in contact with LinkedIn right over here. Probably the best place to get a message in front of me, since email's always
for the people that are listening and not watching the video on YouTube.
Oh, sorry.
Which everyone should be.
Right. But if you are listening, you can actually contact me through our company website, wdfadigital.com or danehealth.ai.
Fantastic. We'll have all that information in the show notes. And I'm not the host of the Silicon Valley podcast. I'm an investment banker focused on mergers, acquisition, growth capital. Connect with me on LinkedIn. I look forward to having a conversation with you. And also check out the SiliconValleyPodcast.com, where we have all our archives. And we have information on all the great things we're working on. And with that, Raj, I want to thank you for taking the time to be on this week's episode of the Silicon Valley Podcast.
Thank you, sir. Happy to be here.